Takes a sec.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Crossing the Finish Line. I'm your host, Cody Kaler. For those of you who are new to the show, we're here every 2 weeks bringing you industry insights and talking with veterans in the logistics space. Today, we have a very special guest all the way from the gloomy and pretty cold Pacific Northwest up there in Seattle, a good friend of mine, and he is the partner marketing manager for Parade, Mr. Jesse Taylor. Hey, Jesse.
Hey, Cody, how's it going?
I'm doing well, buddy. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Surviving the gloom. We hunker down 9 months out of the year.
Just to throw that out there, I do love Seattle during the summer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you have to earn it. You have to earn the summer. And, I was talking to somebody today who's in San Francisco, and we were talking about number of sunny days. And here it's like 160, and there's like 260. But the other important part of that, though, is the other way to measure it is like how much actual UV radiation actually reaches the surface. So a gloomy day is not just a gloomy day. There's levels to it, and we're at like peak level.
Yeah. I like that. You got to earn it. I'm going to start saying that about Phoenix too. So for everybody that comes down here during the 75-degree Christmas, you got to earn that shit with the $1.20 during 4th of July, right?
It gets chilly at night there.
It does, yeah. I mean, wintertime, we have a couple freeze warnings. I mean, I grew up right outside of Salt Lake up in Utah, so it's nothing compared to that cold and snow. Yeah. But it surprisingly does get a little chilly down here. A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, for sure. But my aunt moved down there, and she has horses, and this past summer was like rough for the horses and stuff. But
this was rough.
AC, a little bit of mist, but yeah, man, it's weather. It's hard. Changes.
Yeah. All right, buddy. So let's get started. I know you have a pretty good sized social media presence, right? I see you on LinkedIn a lot. You and I met. We met 4 years ago at TIE in San Diego, right?
I think it was San Diego. Met in person. Prior to that, we'd had some conversations as you guys were coming on board with Parade. But yeah, down in San Diego. That was a good time, man.
At dinner, you got saddled with Tim and I that night, so it was good. Yeah, good times. But so a little bit about yourself. Why don't you talk to yourself, or talk about yourself, not talk to yourself. Talk about yourself. Explain to the fans out there how you got your start in this lovely industry.
Yeah, sure. I'll talk to myself.
There you go. I do that often anyway. So.
But yeah, so I mean, I think I don't know that many people who grow up as little kids saying, I'm going to be a freight broker. I'm going to be in
Yeah.
logistics. But it just kind of happens. So, really, I got my start working at Convoy, RIP.
Mm.
So that was a really interesting experience because I kind of got a glimpse into this industry that people in this part of the country do not have very much insight into. It's all Chicago and Chattanooga and the East Coast where most of that stuff operates. Obviously, Arizona became being an up and coming freight area.
Chicago 2.0, baby.
Yeah, for sure. So here it was new to most people, but they had also brought in a lot of industry vets, industry experts at the leadership level who really did know what they were doing. So it was this really interesting mix of industry expertise, people coming in and being dedicated to training us in the industry, and then also technology folks and a lot of Amazon. And say what you will about Amazon, but that company knows how to grow. So that culture as well coming into mix in this very interesting, very high pressure, high reward environment. And I got to learn about freight. So that role was mostly just cold calling shippers all day, trying to get them to check out this new thing called Convoy that nobody had really heard of. And that was really challenging. Anybody who's cold called shippers knows, yeah, you have to develop your tricks, develop your niches, develop your talking points. I think one of the things for me was Coca-Cola bottling companies. I remember that when I was there, I was just cold calling a ton of Coca-Cola bottling companies because they would sometimes need capacity at the drop of a hat. Some
Yep.
crazy thing happens, or there's a hurricane, they've got to get bottled water, and then the bottled water just stops, and they don't need all that capacity anymore. But then there's so much seasonality to it, and I would get on these cold calls and say exactly that, and it would get people's interest because I could kind of have this crystal ball to say, hey, here's what kind of pain points I'm hearing out there. You open to talking more about that because we've got an interesting solution, access to all this capacity that we can flex up and down. So that's a really long way of saying that I learned about freight logistics capacity at Convoy. Then later went to another company briefly, kind of more in tech, but one of the senior product guys at Convoy had gone over to Parade, where I work now, and he approached me and said, "Hey, we need a sales engineer." And I said, "What's a sales engineer? I don't even know what that is." But hey, open to the adventure. Parade had like 12 people at that time. Our CEO, Anthony, did my onboarding. He bought my laptop and sent it to my house. It was that level of startup. And I learned how to demo the product, speak the broker's language a little bit more, and it's been an interesting adventure from there. Went to sales, and now I'm in marketing where I can just do sales at scale, basically, which is tons of fun.
There you go. So, and this was all pre-COVID?
I was at Convoy pre-COVID,
Okay.
and then I left and I was at a company called Celigo for the first year of COVID, so 2020, and then I joined Parade in January of 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that was about when I think that's about when we signed up with you guys. So little history of how we started working with Parade. All of you who worked in this field before COVID understood kind of how the market shifted, and I think that we're kind of returning to some of that right now with the seasonality that we're seeing right now. But then COVID came out of nowhere, right? And we always talk about events, hurricanes, or the ELD event that happened in 2017, 2018. Those are events that trigger small bull markets. We'd never seen anything like COVID, right? COVID just flipped this entire industry upside down. About a year into it, me and my co-VP Tim Bruno, we were talking and we were like, man, there's got to be something out there. There's got to be something that we can look at. AI was kind of like developing at the time, right? Everybody's kind of talking about it, how it could help you here and how it could help you there. And then randomly, Parade popped up on a search. I think it was on YouTube or something. And it was like, oh, hey, obviously I'm sure that my laptop was listening like they always do. and I checked it out. And as soon as I checked it out, I was like, man, this is a really, really cool technology, right? This is something that freight brokers can get behind as long as it works, because I'm always very skeptical about things working, as I've been sold Ferraris that turned out to be dog crap before, right? And so we demoed it with you guys, and we signed on the dotted line, and outside of the normal hurdles that most brokerages are always going to have when you're trying to automate something that has always been manual, which is getting the team on board, right? That's the hardest challenge. At least it was for us. I'm assuming it probably is for a lot of other brokers. Parade's been great. It's really cool. The technology is awesome. I think that you guys were definitely a pioneer behind this, and I think everybody's scrambling for AI capacity now. And I'll let Jesse dive into what Parade really does do. But for my perspective, it's been great. The way I sold it to my team was, this is a carrier manager. That's what we call our team that's managing all the relationships with carriers and booking the loads. Is a carrier manager that works 24/7, that's never going to call in sick, doesn't take holidays off, and it doesn't care about overtime, right? Like, you don't have to pay it overtime, and at a fraction of the cost of a human being that you don't have to pay insurance for and everything else. And that's the way I kind of look at it. Is it's an assistant to the team, right? It's not actually, at least for us, it didn't replace anybody, but enabled our team members to do more with less, right? It enabled them to book more loads, and we need less headcount to do that. So we've been able to scale up considerably since we've onboarded with Parade, without having to throw as many bodies at any problem that we would have had to without it. So it's, I always kind of caution. I talk to a lot of people about Parade, right? I'm a good partner of your guys. You guys have been great with us. And because of that, I talk to a lot of brokers about you guys. And every time I just try and sell it like that. It's not something that you're just going to plug in and all of a sudden your entire carrier management team is gone. That's not what Parade is for. What Parade is for is, it's going to bring you capacity. You still get to make the decisions, right? But it is going to bring you capacity that you didn't know exist. And it's going to bring it quicker than you can ever post a load or make phone calls. And it's been a great partnership ever since then. You guys have obviously grown substantially since we signed up with you guys. You guys offer a lot more than just the capacity management, which is what we signed up for. And it's really cool to see where you guys have gone, and it's really cool to see where you guys are going, because I'm sure it's just the tip of the iceberg, from a roadmap standpoint. But without that, so just everybody knows I'm not sponsored by those guys. I'm just saying things that are legitimate in my almost 4-year experience with these guys, how much they've helped me and my team and my company. So I will turn the time over now to you, buddy, to kind of explain to the listeners out there what Parade does. If they don't know who you guys are, I'd be shocked if they didn't, but if they don't, and then kind of what you guys are doing, what you guys are working on, and how you can benefit some of the brokerages out there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I could just shut up and end it, and you're good. Our customers are our best sellers, I think. So I appreciate that. It's been a fantastic partnership over the years. And, you said something there that was really on point, which was, you can't just plug this in and get rid of your team. Not that you would even want to, but it's not a plug and play either. It's something that, if you don't have a culture of capacity curation, let's call it, it's going to be a more of an uphill battle to get it to work. Now, if you don't have that prior, that's all right. But this needs to be part of a broader push to say, hey, I want to go and reutilize my carriers. I want to curate a network of carriers that I know, like, and trust, that I can routinely and quickly buy capacity from, win capacity from, quicker than anybody else. Exactly as you said, right at your fingertips, you want to know where the capacity is, because if you're a broker, I guarantee it, you have more capacity in your network than you know about today. And it's just a matter of connecting the dots and aggregating all of the data to bring it out. And once you know about the capacity, you know about the carriers that are regularly running these lanes that you did not know that they run, are giving you great rate quotes. But if you're not writing down your quotes all the time and analyzing them over time, it's really hard to find a pattern in where is that capacity, where are the quotes, where are my rates, where am I buying well compared to the rest of the market. So this is doing all of those things together at once. And for the broker experience, all it is here's a load that I'm trying to cover. Parade has gone and found 50 trucks, whether that's carriers that have emailed you about capacity, carriers who've seen your load out on 18 different load boards that we automatically post your load to, whether or not that carrier has interacted with the co-driver, which is the AI automated email back and forth to go source that quote, whether it's posted trucks on DAT. There's 21 different data signals that we're using to understand where a broker has capacity. And the result is that you cover freight faster with higher quality carriers.
Yep.
There's numbers all over the place. We've heard brokers. We had one broker that literally covers 50 loads per person per day because they're using co-driver for some. Yeah. It's crazy. It would be unheard of 3-4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But 50 a day, I mean, that's a super user edge case, right? It's not like everybody's right now, but we want to get all of our brokers to 100, to 1,000. I mean, the sky is the limit. If you can do 3 things really well. If you can match loads to carriers based on a lot of different data all the time really quickly. Second, you get the load out in front of the carrier wherever the carrier likes to find work. Do it first before they book out their trucks with anybody else. And the third thing is make it really, really ridiculously easy for the carrier to take that load, to move that load with you. And whether that's digital booking or that's just make it easier for the carrier to quote that load and they don't have to wait for you to respond. They don't have to haggle back and forth all day over something. They would rather just cover the load, book the load, than spend all day. Their job is not to book loads. Their job is to move loads. And if you can enable them to do more of the moving and less of the time booking, that's a serious value add to your broker, or to your carrier rather.
Huge.
Yeah.
I'm glad you touched on something there that I was actually shocked about our first year with you. Really quick, looks like Michael Sternberg just commented, Jesse's a stud. Jesse's
Nice.
good. I was excited that you were able to jump on this because 1, I'm a big proponent of Parade, and 2, you and I are good friends, and I thought it'd be great. But so case in point, I had, when we partnered up with Parade initially, we were cradle to grave. We have moved to a buy sell model since then, but we were cradle to grave. I was still booking loads back then. I had a phenomenal carrier that always ran Fresno Bakersfield to Colorado for me, right? Phenomenal carrier. He was covering about 60 to 70% of my loads in that area. But I had a team over in Raleigh, North Carolina that had a couple other lanes that he had never even seen. He had never looked at because they weren't posted on DAT a lot, right? They were just using their own carriers, fully vetted carriers and all that fun shit, all that, whatever the buzzwords is all the time now. But just because of the stupid fraud out there. But anyways, as soon as we turned Parade on and he started looking at our load board, which is another thing I'll bring up here shortly, he started booking loads with my other team over there, and there was a power lane for him that he was consistently $200 to $300 over the rates that they were paying, or under the rates that they were paying their other carriers, because he had such a good backhaul out of there, right? And he started taking that. He would have had no idea that we ran that because we were kind of in silos. When you're running cradle to grave, you are kind of siloed off. Like, I don't want to share my capacity with everybody else, right? Like, I want my capacity because that's what affects my paycheck. And as soon as we turned that on, it was like we had several carriers just like that were like, I didn't know you guys ran these lanes. And all of a sudden, this guy that was giving me 10 trucks, a week, he was giving us 20 trucks a week, and they were running several different lanes for us. And when you can build that relationship with a single carrier, and that carrier doesn't want to go work with other brokers, guess what? When you have a holiday week, when you have what we just had, which was the Diwali week in California, and then a freak snowstorm, early November snowstorm that just completely killed capacity last week, those are the type of carriers that are not going to kill you during those weeks. Those are the type of relationships that you have to strive for and build. And Parade is such a huge tool for us to help build that stuff, because not only do you guys bring us additional capacity that we didn't know existed out there, but we were able to get our own private load board. So the smaller brokerages, if you're 100 million and under, you probably don't have your own proprietary load board. Parade enables you guys to have that. We have a private load board that our fully vetted, 100% know they're real carriers, not double brokers over in wherever they're at, right? They're the only ones who can view that, and they get first dibs on our loads, right? And so you can go through and you can create those carrier scorecards, and you can give your good carriers, your great carriers, access to your loads automatically quicker than everybody else. And I love that about the tool is you're able to, it's not even like the digital booking, because I felt like that was kind of like a buzz thing, right? During COVID, everybody was like all about digital booking, all this fun shit. And there is that, and I get that, and it is a help on some of your redundant lanes. However, just having the ability to have your own load board that all of your carriers can go to, and you don't have to send out your text messages and your emails to everybody saying, I got this load in 3 days, it's going from here to here. They can see it. And you know that it's not a bunch of, for example, if we post on a load board, the first 9 emails, you can almost guarantee are going to be double brokers, 100%. You can bypass all of that stuff. Just scrape the capacity that you guys already have set up, that you don't have to do another setup. You know who to pay, you know who they factor with, you know who their accountant is. All the good stuff that you need to know is already there. The more you reutilize your capacity, for all the brokers out there that the last 3 years have been a cakewalk because you've just been able to post a load and cover it whenever you wanted because capacity's been there, those days are numbered, right? Those days are going to be over at some point in time. I'm sure everybody has read the latest FreightWaves article about the freight recession is officially over. It may be over, meaning the rates are not going to continue to go down. I don't know if there's a bull around the corner that the rates are going to skyrocket. So don't everybody get your hopes up. However, either scenario, it's going to get tighter and tighter. You're going to see seasonality. We are already starting to see the seasonality return, which is good. It's good for the market. It means it's healthy. When that happens, you don't want to be that broker that has to call your customer and be like, oh, sorry, I've posted your load for 2 straight days and I can't find capacity for it. Because guess what? You don't have that customer anymore. I was a customer for 12 years, right? I got my start in logistics working for Walmart way back in the day when I was 18 years old. And I was on the shipper side for 12 years. So I understand that if you were a carrier that came back to me and dropped a load on me on the 4th of July, you were never going to be a carrier for me again, ever. Right. And I think that that's why I was so happy to get you on here at the time, right now, is because, and it worked out perfect because Craig just released that like 2 days ago or something, right? Or Friday or something. Yeah.
We were going to do it sooner, and I'm glad we did.
Yeah. But timing worked out perfect. So, I've heard a lot of clamoring out there about how capacity is going to get tighter and tighter and tighter. And that may be the case. And if it is, if you guys aren't tapping into every resource that you can, I'm telling you, you're going to have a bad time. To quote South Park, you're going to have a bad time. And you're going to lose some customers. You're going to lose a lot of margin. The best thing you can do as a broker is make sure that you maintain carrier relationships and your carriers are able to book your loads and you get your loads in front of them faster than anybody else. That's number one, right? So kudos to you guys. 100%. You guys have created a really great platform that I think is basically integrated with everything in its neighbor, right?
That's essential.
Yeah.
That's 100% essential.
Yep.
This couldn't
100%.
work in a vacuum. If the TMS integration is that's table stakes, like obviously, and the ones that we integrate with just about every TMS. The only ones that we don't are the ones where you cannot. And so there are so many different sources of data about capacity, and I really am confident in saying this. We have more capacity data than just about anybody. And part of that, like you said before, it's like you got to make sure that it's really easy. If part of it is just, and you also mentioned there, digital booking, it was kind of buzzy, and digital booking is a means to an end.
Yeah.
Digital booking is not an end. It's a means to an end. So you've got to, digital booking is great if you've got that carrier where you've got the relationship up to a point where you don't have to spend any time booking it. That's fantastic. But there's work that is going on up until that point that is also super valuable. If you can just reduce the time to cover with that carrier, that is a huge win.
Huge one.
And also you mentioned, hey, the first 10 or 20 or 50 emails that come in from a DAT posting are going to be double brokers. The beauty of what CodeDriver does is, and I had to make sure to talk about CodeDriver. The beauty of what CodeDriver does, which is a part of the complete Parade platform, is that every single email that gets sent to your team based on a DAT posting or really anything of a carrier asking, hey, can I get the load details? What's the rate on this? CodeDriver just double checks in your verification tool of choice, your Highway, RMIS, My Carrier portal. Make sure that it's a carrier that you can work with, and double checks the MC against that and in the TMS, and then goes and responds immediately to that carrier's email saying, "Yep, here are those load details. What kind of rate are you trying to get?" And it goes back and forth with that carrier. The beauty of this is that that carrier sends you an email, and before they might have waited 5-10 minutes, maybe never gotten a reply from you, but this way they're getting it in 15 seconds or less. Before they're even leaving their email inbox, they're getting your reply with what they asked for. So that really reduces the friction of working with you, and that just gets more quotes, because we're going to get carriers to say, okay, I know these load details, Parade knows that you can work with this carrier, that they're vetted to your standards. You can still get a human's eye on it at the end, but you don't want a human spending time looking at those 50 emails from double brokers. You only want a human looking at, hey, here are the vetted carriers that have given me a quote on this load. So it's just a fire hose of quotes from qualified carriers, pre-vetted carriers for you right within your Parade platform. So like, you think about digital bookings, we used to keep a keen eye on digital bookings, like the digital booking percentage as the main metric of success. Now we're looking at more digital conversions. So any load that had a match and then resulted in a digital quote or a digital booking that converted, because a quote is fantastic. That's like 80%, 90% of the work being done to get that quote and then just put it in front of you. So that's hugely valuable as well. And with CodeDriver, the email, you're seeing this hockey stick of quotes that come in per load and the number of loads that have quotes on it. So that's taken care of. Oftentimes we've got brokers now pretty consistently getting half of their loads covered that way.
That's great.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Next on that horizon, though, is, hey, where are the other half of the loads being covered? And usually that's over the phone. Okay. So the next step in automating some of the grunt work, busy work, is automatically fielding phone calls from carriers, and the carrier says, can I get those load details? Parade will ask, hey, can I get your MC number, all that stuff, and then respond back, hey, our rate for this is $2,000, and I'll go back and forth with the carrier and then deliver that quote to you, or send it to somebody to book it because, hey, this is below our rate. So that is really looking at unlocking the other half of bookings. And now somebody can just sit there and not spend all day looking for capacity, posting load. That nobody should be posting to a load board manually at this point in time in 2024. Agreed. That should all be happening as you go, and nobody should be spending time talking to carriers that you cannot work with. Only talk with carriers that you can work with, and ideally that have given you a quote on that load. And I think about, like you said, hey, we're going to look at capacity potentially tightening here, and everybody can speculate on when that's really going to happen, and has it really happened? I don't really know. Okay, everybody's speculating. Craig Fuller's talking a lot about it. He also wants to be the transportation secretary, and he's like campaigning like crazy on X/Twitter about that. So it's it's hard to say, but I think that this is something that goes beyond the cycle, because in a tight market, of course, you need help finding a truck. Yep. And ideally, you want to find the right truck and go win that truck. And that's our bread and butter. But in a soft market, you really need to curate your network and be able to do more with less, and be able to cover more loads without, I want to grow the business and grow the ability to cover freight without having to grow the team, for example. And so, got to tread lightly, because you're, like you said, this is a broker workflow augmentation, not a replacement. This is that assistant for you. So yeah, brokerage efficiency now is something that people are talking more about. And we are really at this inflection point. We're at a critical juncture where you can, right now, if you're doing something about this, it's great, but you're getting into reactive territory rather than being proactive. If you were proactive, you would have done this a year ago, but also people were bleeding a year ago, so it's hard to blame them. But now we're starting to hear more of those conversations, like how do I get proactive about covering freight faster with high quality carriers, and that's really the mission here.
Yeah, and you guys do a fantastic job. And just from a user's perspective, just to reiterate some of what Jesse was saying. So my team, literally, as soon as an order is built into our TMS, that TMS, which we use Turvo now, sends it over to Parade within, I don't know, I think it's 10 or 15 seconds, right? It's like it's that fast. And automatically, Parade is out there already trying to find matches based off of historical, all the carriers that we have in our network who have ran that lane before, or maybe who we have set up in our smart lane functions that say that they do like that lane. And then it's also going to the load boards and saying, okay, is there trucks posted in these areas? And if there is, the way we have it work, they reach out to those guys. They send an email to these carriers and say, hey, ANZ Trucking has this load in their TMS, like that they need to cover, and here's the load details, right? It's crazy. It's really cool. I mean, it's literally working in the background as my team is verifying pickup numbers and POs with the shippers. Parade's in the background trying to book that load for them already. And so for the brokerages out there who are listening, that's why I was so excited to have Jesse on here. That's why I talk about Parade as a great partner and a solution for you guys. I've been there. When I started as a broker, it was you come in the morning, you're looking at your loads that you haven't already pre-booked. You usually have lanes that you can pre-book with carriers all the time. We deal with produce a lot, and produce has a very, very small window for tenders to come over. We're usually getting tenders tonight for loads that have to load in the morning. Those are very hard to pre-book, but you'd come in and you'd have to look at your load board and say, okay, these are the priority loads. These are what's loading first. Immediately go to load boards, manually post in whatever load boards you're using. Plus we would use mass email generators. I think we used to use like GoDaddy or some shit like that. Right. And we'd send it out to all of our carriers that were set up in there. And then you hit your phones, right? I mean, you have two phones. Most of us have two phones in this industry because that's just how it works. And you're texting as many carriers as you can. And that's how we used to cover loads. And it was a nightmare. It was a huge time suck, but it is what it is at that point in time. So Parade's kind of done all of that for you. No more texting, no more GoDaddy account, no more any of that stuff. It's literally doing that in the background. CoDriver is really cool. When I first demoed CoDriver with you guys, Andy over there, I was kind of blown away by it because I was sitting there thinking, like, I remember how many emails that I would get. I'm just going to use 10 as an example because I'm not super intelligent and it's a round number. But, if you were getting 10 emails off of one load, that your only response to that carrier was, what's your MC? And then you look their MC up in Highway, which is what we use. Big shout out to Reed over there. I've had him on here. Great guy over there. Highway's fantastic. Another great partner.
Great.
So then you go to Highway, you type them in and you say, oh shit, they're flagged for all this stuff. They don't pass our test, right? And then you go back to them. How much time did you just waste? And if you have to do that 10 times on average for every single load you're booking a day, all of a sudden your reps are only booking 5, 6, 7 loads a day versus 20, 30, 40, 50 in some cases, like you mentioned. And, as a leader of a company, that's one of the main metrics that I look at, right? Because if I want to continue to scale my company up, I don't want to continue to always have to throw headcount at it because that's the most expensive thing you can do. I want to be able to equip my team, plus my team, when you're making commission off of booking loads, you want your team to be able to make the best living that they possibly can. Let them book those 50 loads. I want those guys to book 50 loads, right? And I think they do too. But they don't want to take 12 hours to do it, right? Nobody wants to work 12 hours every single day. So whatever you guys can do, if you're a business owner, if you own a brokerage, or if you're a leader in a brokerage and you don't have anything remotely close to what Parade's doing, which I don't actually even know your competition, to be honest with you. It's something to check out, guys. Like, it really is. It's something that helped us out, and we're not a huge brokerage. We're still barely under, we're just under 100 million annual. So we're kind of in that mid-level range, right? But it's a huge help to us. It was a huge help to us when we were scaling up from 50 million. It was a big reason why we've been able to scale up from there, is because we can do more for less. And to Jesse's point, during the slow times, the last 3 years, maybe not slow times, but when capacity is ample, we were able to pick and choose the best carriers, not just any carriers, but the best carriers, cultivate a relationship with those guys, get them into our network, and really drive those relationships. And that's how you are proactive in this industry, because this industry is always going to have its ups and it's always going to have its downs. You got to be preparing in the down for that next up, and during the up, you got to be praying that you did a good enough job during the down, or else it's going to eat your lunch, right? So it's really something to look at, guys. If you haven't demoed it, or even gave it a second thought, reach out to Jesse. I know he's super active on LinkedIn. I'm one of my good friends, so if you guys can't find him on LinkedIn for some ungodly reason, reach out to me and I'll connect you guys. But definitely a great tool. I think most brokerages are going to have to adapt to something like this the next 5 to 10 years to survive anyways. So what the hell are you guys waiting for? Jump on board. If you're still doing everything manually, it's going to run its course at some point in time. So Nate,
man, I couldn't possibly have said it any worse or any better. Any worse. Jeez. You did a terrible job.
Yeah. Gotta throw a big shout out to Nate over there at eCarrier Check. Great product as well, guys. He said, great insights. Thanks for sharing all your knowledge, brother. If you guys don't know who eCarrier Check is, check those guys out too. Great platform to vet carriers and find capacity. Also, they allow you to find shippers as well and verify shippers accounts, which anybody who saw my post earlier, I think it was last week, about the new uptick in fraud that we're seeing with shippers or fraudulent shippers, basically people reaching out to you claiming to be a shipper to get a fraudulent load moved for them. I did give a shout out to those guys at eCarrier Check. Check those guys out. That's a tool to use to make sure that you guys aren't falling for those traps. The best thing, I'm in sales, right? The best thing in the world for me is like having people come to me like, hey, we need your service, instead of me having to cold call people. So for the newer sales reps out there, when they get an email saying, hey, I need you to load this or move this load for me, you're jumping for joy. You're like, oh my God, the sales are coming to me, right? Instead of me having to go for the sales. If you're not double checking, verifying, you guys might be toast. So definitely.
I get TQL reps emailing me asking me for freight.
That's not even funny, because I get them too. And every time I do the same thing. I will report you for double brokering. Stop soliciting double brokering. We do not work with brokers. Sorry. But anyways, we're going to wrap it up here. We are a little bit over on time. Jesse, I really appreciate you being on here, brother. I said, if you guys have not thought about anything AI related, which is weird if you haven't, check them out. It might not be for everybody, but I think that tool is probably for 95% of the brokerages out there. It would give you a leg up. Everybody else is doing it. Don't fall far behind, or else you're going to be left in the dust. And reach out to Jesse. Great product. I'm sure he can hook you guys up. Where else can they find you, Jesse, besides LinkedIn?
Yeah. Find me on LinkedIn, Jesse-Taylor. Also, just check out the website, parade.ai. You can request a demo. And we work most specifically with brokerages using, most of your typical TMS platforms, doing around, 800 to 1,000 full truckloads a month and up typically. So that's where you start to see like tons of momentum, but, always worth a conversation. We're extremely excited to talk to more and more brokers all the time. So Cody, I really appreciate you having me on here. Like I said, our customers are our best sellers, and I could not have said it any better myself. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, everybody, for joining. We are on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. So please, find us on there, like, comment, reach out to me with anything that you guys want to see in future episodes. I really appreciate everybody for tuning in. Appreciate the comments. Jesse, until I see you again, brother. Thank you guys, and have a great week.
See you, Cody. Have a good one.